The newest legendary event, Alien Majesty, gives us the opportunity to add the Patermine. Today we're going to deep dive into it to make sure you get the Genestealer Patriarch to the highest rarity possible. We have had another new legendary event joining the game. The Alien Majesty event allows you to open the second Genestealer, the Patermine, who is the Genestealer Patriarch, and now we have an opportunity to make sure we really maximize our gains from the event. Of course, the first of 3 events is already in motion, but with 2 still remaining, this is exactly the right time to be planning the team you will need to level up. As it can take months to get your characters in the right place, it's time to specialize for the event. What do I think of the event? Well, it's nice to see Final Vengeance appearing in a track, although I'm still disappointed that it's a no Final Vengeance battle instead of a battle with characters that have Final Vengeance. We already have 13 of them, so we have a full team no problem. However, a lot of those are legendary characters, so maybe this is the problem. We've seen a lot of new traits slowly appearing in recent times in the negative variety where you can't pick characters that have these traits, but I'm really looking forwards to when they start being used properly. I love the variety that legendary events brings, and so want as many different ways to mix up my troops as possible. In terms of difficult battles, I think the Gamma Power battle might catch a few people out as it has no chaos available, and I'm curious to see how everyone manages this one, because even for me I'm only got 2 characters that are diamond level there. For the best characters overall in this event, it's a very familiar story with a lot of old reliable Xenos appearing at the top, and we're going to take a closer look in the next character release video. But now, let's start by looking at the strategy for playing legendary events. My strategy for these is always very similar every month. I will sit down with my current roster, my Google Planner sheet, and I'll just play around with it, looking to see how I can bring my team to the next level. And what does next level mean? Well, it depends on really where you are right now in the game. To open a legendary event character, realistically you're going to need at least 6 to 10 Gold 1 characters. And of course, more the better. So the first level to reach is getting some of the best characters in the game leveled up to Gold 1. Then after that, I'm at the next stage where I'm starting to bring a few of my characters up to Gold 2 so that I can just add 1 more star to my legendary characters. Most of the rest of the teams have Gold 1 characters in them, so it's really about bringing them up to that next level. Finally, the top players are all working to complete every single battle in a legendary event, but I think that requires quite a few high-level characters at present. So let's stick with looking at what characters are useful to level for the event, and then you can decide yourself where you want to take them. In today's video, I'm going to add a new section which shows you the quickest way to open the character, and that means getting to 12,500 points without any purchases in the first event. In most tracks, this is going to use 3 or 4 characters, and so is more for the longer term players than for newer players. For the rest of us, we will be able to use the full 5 character method as usual, and so I'm not going to spend too long going through this quicker method, as it's really for more experienced players and they will understand how to do things. So I'm just going to list the most mathematically efficient teams and let you decide how to play them. For this event, if you have the following characters at D3 with decent skill levels and equipment, then you should be able to walk through to level 14 on Alpha and Gamma and level 13 on Beta, mainly because the Black Templars are rock solid. With these points combined, it'll take you through the 12,500 point mark. The teams you need are, for the Alpha track, it's Bellator, Isabella and Marnius Calgar, and they take on the Bolter and Melee battles. For the Beta track, it's Angrax, Onshi, Nauseous Rodbone, and Maladus, and they take on the Power, No Summons, and Melee battles. And then in the Gamma track, it's Eldrion, Incisus, Janezar, Shosil, and Tyrant Guard, and they take on the Piercing, No Overwatch, and No Final Vengeance battles. And the truth is that if you want to walk through legendary events, every single one of those characters are ones you should be focusing on. They are some of the most powerful in the game for this mode, so ones that should be high up in your list for leveling. Okay, but now we're going to go back to the teams for us mere mortals who have the characters around Gold 2 level or Gold 1 if you've got healers. And if your troops are less than this, then you will struggle to open the Patermine in this event, but it's a good goal for you by the time the last event comes round. We'll begin with the Alpha track, and we can't take any Orc characters because we're fighting against the orcs. The battles are as follows: physical for 95 points, melee for 65 points, max 4 hits for 30 points, mechanical for 85 points, and bolter for 100 points. And for this track there are a couple of different ways to tackle it, but whichever you choose, you do need to split the battles up into 3 separate parts. So I'm going to recommend to split it up as follows: bolter and max 4 hits for 130 points, physical and melee for 160 points, and finally the mechanical battle for 85 points. And we're starting with the easy one, bolter and max 4 hits, and it's easy because we can do the Isabella Battle Ball here. If you don't have Isabella yet, keep an eye out for the next battle pass, or you can get her free in the next copy of the White Dwarf magazine. And for these 2 battles, you're going to need to pick 5 from the following 12 characters: Abaddon, Azrael, Brother Butchered, Certus, Commissar Yarrick, High Marshal Helbrecht, Isabella, Lucian, Marnius Calgar, Morven Val, Rosita, and Titus. And that's a lot of characters. With Isabella, I'm always going to be prioritizing Mark 10 Gravis armor primarily, or Terminator armor secondary. Ideally, you want to have your Mark 10 Gravis armor at over 300 armor to survive until stage 8 or even 10 with ease. And so I'm going to pick something that looks like this: Abaddon, Brother Butchered, Isabella, Marnius Calgar, and then I'm going to throw in High Marshal Helbrecht, Azrael, or Titus. Ideally Helbrecht, but as Calgar and Helbrecht are legendary characters, you may need to fall back to Titus or Azrael instead. Moving to the physical and melee battles, this is a little bit trickier as it's now using new characters, and so I do wonder how well you're going to be able to construct this team in reality. But as we have to wait until the 3rd event, then maybe you can put something together to Gold 2 level. There are only 5 to take, and they are Cutscoden, Macer, Matanio, Tiart, and Tyrant Guard. And if you do feel that this is too much for you, then simply split these battles into 2 and use 2 tokens to progress through it. There are a lot of champions you can use if you do that, and so I'm not going to go through them fully today. Finally, in the mechanical battles, you should be prioritizing some of these as they are used in so many different modes, and you can pick 5 from the following 11 mechanical characters: Actus, Aleph Null, Anufet, Exeter Row, Imospec, Makotep, Morven Val, Revas, Tangida, Thutmose, and Vitruvius. And personally, I have a solid team that I always choose, and it looks a little like this: Actus, Aleph Null, Exeter Row, Revas, and Tangida. And there is just so much healing, spawning, and killing that they can survive way beyond what a normal team can do, and so well worth the investment in all of them. They are also useful in guild raids, and so you double your money while leveling them. So to bring that all together, it looks like this. Let's move on to the beta track, where we can't take any Imperial characters because we're fighting against those pesky Black Templars, and as usual, they are a hardy bunch. The battles are as follows: power for 95 points, flying 95 points, no summons 45 points, max 2 hits 70 points, and melee 70 points. And we can see that the developer Snowprint are really keeping things tough, and so we need to split up the track into 3 again. This time I would recommend power and no summons for 140 points, flying and max 2 hits for 165 points, and melee for 70 points. And the reason that I start with power and no summons for 140 points is because we have a handy healer available for these battles, and that means it's easier to complete. We can pick 5 from the following 9: Abaddon, Angrax, Onshi, Maladis, Morgan Ra, Nauseous Rodbone, Toth, Typhus, and Volt. And the healer is of course Rotbone, and I would be lining them up with a 5 something like this: Abaddon, Angrax, Maladis, Nauseous Rodbone, and Toth. And that gives you a lot of beef to sustain against those pesky Black Templars. For flying and max 2 hits, we're going to be leaning heavily into Magnus's Thousand Suns faction. We can pick 5 from the following 6: Ahriman, Neurothrope, Shadowsun, Thaumachus, Thutmose, and Yazagor. And as I said, we're going to be leaning heavily into Thousand Suns, and since you have Neurothrope at a decent level, we can definitely pick the Flying Space Shrimp to back them up, and then just throw in Thutmose or Shadowsun depending on who you have highest leveled. Probably Thutmose unless you're Nan handy. And so it's going to look like this: Ahriman, Neurothrope, Thaumachus, Thutmose, and Yazagor. Thaumachus is pretty nice because he adds a random shield to your allies, but this is definitely a team that's going to need to be over-leveled. Without a healer, they will get crushed against the might of the Black Templars for sure. Finally, for melee, there are a lot of champions you can pick from, 21 in total, and so I'm not going to bore you by listing them all out. I'm just going to tell you who I would recommend for the battle: Angrax, Karn, Maladus, Nauseous Rotbone, and Tyrant Guard. With Angrax, Karn and Maladus in there, you're already going to do a good amount of damage, and then if you use Tyrant Guard and Rotbone to keep your team alive, then you're going to be going for quite some time. So to bring all that together, it looks like this. Moving to the Gamma track sees a ban on Chaos, because you're fighting against Chaos. The battles are Piercing for 110 points, no Overwatch for 30 points, no Final Vengeance for 40 points, min 4 hits for 100 points, and power for 95 points. And once again, we have to split this up into 3 parts. This time it's quite sad because there's really only one way I would recommend to do it. You split it into Piercing, no Overwatch, and no Final Vengeance for 180 points, min 4 hits for 100 points, and power for 95 points. Start with Piercing, no Overwatch, and no Final Vengeance. You need to pick 5 from the following 6: Athana, Eldrion, Incissus, Janezar, Shosil, and Tyrant Guard. And I would personally take Athana over Eldrion because I have Eldrion higher leveled and he can hit 2 characters at a time with his Psyker Smite. And so that would give us a team of Eldrion, Incissus, Janezar, Shosil, and Tyrant Guard. And I've talked about this team before, but it seems like it's an incredibly important team for legendary events. The trio of Janezar, Tyrant Guard, and Incissus can shield and heal to absorb quite a lot of punishment. Shosil's drones are a good distraction, and Eldrion can even take a little punch or two. So do yourself a favor and definitely consider leveling this team up. For the min 4 hits battle, there are again a lot you can choose from here, 15 in total in fact, and so I won't go through them all, but I would recommend a team that looks like this: Aleph Null, Bellator, Immuspec, Morgan Ra, and Revas. And you stick Revas at the front of the pack, Aleph Null heals him, and then Immuspec and Morgan Ra overwatches anyone that comes close. Bellator is just the icing on the mechanical cake, as he can take a few punches and then drop his belly babies into the field to annoy the enemy, and you can really push through the battles very well. Finally, in the power battle, we have another 14 to pick from, so again I'm just going to tell you my recommended team, and that is Aryak, Brother Yeager, Marneus Calgar, Morgan Ra, and Sword Brother Godswill. And that's a very beefy front line again, with Morgan Ra overwatching and the Templar brothers Yeager and Godswill chewing through the Chaos team. And so, again, to bring that all together, it looks like this. Now, as always, that is an overwhelming amount of data. Let's summarize it into a good plan for you to focus on that'll allow you to maximize your points and hopefully unlock the character. This still depends on your level, and you'll probably need 6 or 7 of these at Gold 1 level, as well as having Isabella and Rotbone, but don't despair if you don't, because every upgrade you put into these characters will be useful in the future and will move you one step closer to opening all future legendary event characters. Firstly, I always start with the healers relevant to this event. This time round, it's Isabella, Nauseous Rotbone, Incissus, and Aleph Null. And I know there are quite a few here, but all of these are just so incredibly important to the legendary events, so just get on with leveling them to Gold 1 at least. Next, I work on the tanks. This time round, it's Tyrant Guard, Maladus, Revas, and Abaddon. Then I work on some characters that gain the most points in this event and are very relevant generally, and that's Marneus Calgar, Morgan Ra, and Angrax. And finally, I would pick some of the following characters to push up a little bit. All of these are incredibly important in legendary events and also do well in this event: Onshi, Neurothrope, Janezar, and Yazagor. So that's a lot of characters to focus on, and maybe even that last list is too overwhelming for you. If that's the case, just pick 3 or 4 of those characters that you think you'd like to play and get them leveled to Gold 1. All the best with the event, and let me know if this helps you unlock the Patermine when the event comes round again.